Quite interesting to read. Welcome back to my channel, and you join me once again for a history walk through the town of Ipswich. I absolutely love coming to Ipswich. There is so much history here, and I discover something new every time I come here. I'm starting my journey here in Christchurch Park, one of the most beautiful areas of Ipswich, and behind me is the town's war memorial, dedicated to all those brave souls who gave their lives in First and the Second World War. It was paid for by a public subscription. People of Ipswich hoped to raise around £5,000 to build that memorial. Raised over £50,000 in the end, and the rest of the money was donated to Ipswich Hospital. The memorial was unveiled on the 6th of May 1924. Beautiful memorial here, and a beautiful park as well. Every time I come to Ipswich, I always come to Christchurch Park because I just love it here. It is beautiful, and on a sunny day like today, 25 degrees they reckon, I'll take that any day of the week. It's lovely. So in this video, I'm going to take a walk through the streets of Ipswich, discover some more history about this fantastic town, and end up at the Unitarian Meeting House, one of the more interesting buildings here in Ipswich. This is Fonarow Road. It used to be called Dairy Road, and there used to be a stream which ran down the middle several hundred years ago. At the bottom is the Bethesda Baptist Church, one of the most striking buildings here in Ipswich, especially those columns on the front. And there's been independent Christian worship on this site since 1782. And this building held its first service on 2nd of July 1913. Now in July 1911, Mrs. Susanna Page died, aged 81, and she'd been a member of the congregation on this church for the previous 67 years. This church replaced an earlier church which stood on this site, and there's been worship here since 1782. And she's actually baptised in the river which ran down the side of the road. That was actually recorded in the history books, which is rather interesting indeed. But her son Arthur offered to pay for the new church. What a noble gesture, and what a fine building the worshippers have here. It really is just beautiful to look at. Just one of many independent churches and also Anglican churches in Ipswich. So let's head on a little further into the town centre and see what we can discover on my way down to the Unitarian Meeting House. The architecture of the Bethesda Church really is just beautiful. Built in the Edwardian classical style, and the architect was a man called Frederick Forch. Really is beautiful. Just walked through this little alleyway by the side of the Hilbert Inn, one of Ipswich's oldest pubs. Just ahead of me up on the wall, turn the camera around, is a ghost sign. Now I do like seeing ghost signs when I'm out and about, and this one has quite an interesting story to tell. Egertons of Ipswich Limited. And it all began with William Botwood's carriage making works in Woodbridge Road, which was established in 1870. Now, William Botwood died in 1896, and his business was carried on by his two sons, Samuel and William. But a few years later, they were joined by a pioneering motorist by the name of Reginald Egerton. And until 1910, the motor car manufacturers Botwood and Egerton ran alongside the carriage making firm until Egerton decided to set up his own business, which eventually became hugely successful. The Botwood company became Botwoods Limited, and in 1920 Botwood shares were acquired by another company, Man Egerton and Company Limited of Norwich. So humble beginnings at Ipswich, and now dissolved into the huge company of Man Egerton. But it's not the only interesting item here in this little alleyway, because just on my left is an ancient piece of Ipswich history. And Ipswich has the oldest marketplace in the country. There's just so much history here in Ipswich, which is why I just love coming here. I see something different every time, and this wall really is quite interesting. And I wonder how many people of Ipswich walk past and actually look at the Roman bricks and the ancient masonry. Not many, I would have thought. To them, it's probably just a piece of wall. But walls tell stories, and stories relate to previous buildings and the history of a town or a city. And back in medieval times, of course, Ipswich was called Gippiswick, and Ipswich is derived from Gippiswick. But they built the town wall here, the ramparts to the town, because of the Viking invasions. They came here in 991 and in the year 1010 as well. And just behind me is the Church of St Mary Le Tower. So let's take a walk around there and discover more about the history of Ipswich. As I turn into the churchyard, behind me is the Admirals House. It used to be the former house of Admiral Benjamin William Page, who was born in Ipswich on the 7th of February 1765 and died here on the 3rd of October 1845, aged 80 years. And he was also a local artist as well as being an admiral. And on one occasion, the Duke of Wellington paid him a visit here. There's a lovely blue plaque on the front to commemorate him and that event. I do like seeing blue plaques whenever I'm out and about, and Ipswich has got quite a few interesting ones. It's also a bit quieter here as well, the noise from the traffic and so many interruptions from other people as well. It's always nice to talk to people when I'm out and about, but when I'm trying to film, and it's very difficult. Never mind. But it's lovely and quiet here in the churchyard of St Mary Le Tower. And what a beautiful church it is. First recorded here in the Domesday Survey of 1086. But the current church mostly dates from around 1860, 1870. The architect for who redesigned the church was Richard Phipson, or Richard McIlwain Phipson. Let's give him his full name. But it's also where the Royal Charter was read and signed here in the year 1200, Before this, it was the place where folk moots were held. This was the local government in medieval times, where public meetings or hustings were held. Today it's a beautiful cemetery, lots of wildlife and an array of plants as well. Really is lovely. What a beautiful church. And just next to the Admirals House is the Rep Pub. It's originally built as a lecture theatre in 1879. It became Paul's Picture Palace in 1909, and then an arts theatre. And the careers of Ian McKellen, Ben Kingsley and many other well-known people all started their careers acting in repertory theatre here in Ipswich. And Charles Dickens even gave a lecture here as well. He first came to Ipswich in 1835 and described the place as the dullest and most boring place on earth. You should come here today. It's vastly different and it's an exciting, vibrant place. So many people and so many different languages I hear in the streets as I walk around, which is lovely to hear. A lot of Eastern European languages being spoken. And the whole town centre really is delightful. Lots of cafes and bars and an array of shops. And it certainly isn't boring or dull. Maybe it was when Mr. Dickens came here, but it's not now. It really is beautiful, and I do enjoy coming to Ipswich. Now let's head on a little further down towards St Lawrence Church and on to the Unitarian Meeting House. There are numerous ancient churches here in Ipswich, and St Lawrence is one of the more interesting. But it's not the bells that I've come to look at in this video, because I covered them in a previous video, and they are in the Guinness Book of Records as the oldest set of bells in the country. What I've come to look at is the old door, and this one is rather interesting. It has a sanctuary knocker on the side, or an escutcheon plate to give it its full name. Around the side of the escutcheon plate are alternating symbols of 3 candles and 3 fishes. The candles denote Jesus as being the light of the world, and the 3 fishes, they denote the Trinity, the 3 in 1, Father, Son and Holy Ghost. And people could claim sanctuary here for up to 40 days. So if you owed somebody money, or need to take refuge in the church, a safe place, you could claim sanctuary, and you had 40 days to make peace with whoever it was that was pursuing you. But you couldn't claim sanctuary if you were being pursued by the church or by the crown. And the art of sanctuary was abolished in 1623. And there are quite a few old churches with doors with escutcheon plates still on them, and some in better condition than this one. But they're really nice to see, and there aren't too many left. But what is interesting is just round the corner on the back of the church, and these symbols. Quite a number of churches actually contain symbols on the outside. Now the first one is a monogram with a crown above it. Well, that denotes the Immaculate Conception, and it's based on the dogma, the principles of faith. In the middle we have a modern rose, and on the left-hand side are the initials IHC, and they are derived from the Greek called Echoch. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. I'll put the original Greek on the screen so you can see it. And they denote the meaning. They actually mean Jesus. IHC is a short version of the Greek meaning Jesus. But there are 3 symbols on the other side of the east window. The first is a pair of shears. Well, it relates to the drapery trade used to be prominent here in Ipswich. And the initials on the middle one, well, that's JB, and they stand for John Baldwin. And he was a draper here in Ipswich. And the third is just an empty shield. Now, the name John Baldwin, it features in the inscription underneath the east window. And the inscription reads, "Pray for the souls of John Baldwin, draper, and Jane his wife, and for all the good donors." Very interesting to read. I do like looking at things on the outsides of churches. These are the symbols that people walk past every single day in this church and others around the country, perhaps without giving them any thought or meaning. But now let's walk down a little further to the Unitarian Meeting House. I've had a really enjoyable time just walking through the town of Ipswich, discovering a little more of the town's amazing history. But I've made it now down to the Unitarian Meeting House. The house behind me dates from 1699. There was already an existing property on the site, and that was purchased on the 5th of August for £150. Construction took 6 months and a total cost of £256, 14 shillings and 6 pence. There was a further £96 for the internal galleries. A few weeks ago I went inside the building and had a look round, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So here are a few photographs from my visit. It's really beautiful inside the meeting house and well worth a visit if you're in Ipswich. I'll leave a link to their website in the description, so have a look, and it is open on selected days each week, and they're listed on their website. It really is one of the hidden gems in the history of Ipswich. But this is where I end this video, and the last video I shall make from Ipswich. There are 7 others on my channel for you to enjoy, and they all feature different historical aspects from Ipswich. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow my journey around the world, because there are plenty more videos from other locations here in England and across Europe as well. Thank you so much for watching.